Also, I have a voice that doesn't carry very well. It's an interesting thing when we start looking at the Buddhist teaching. When a lot of people from all over the world start talking about what Buddha taught, they say that Buddha taught suffering. And actually, the suffering was already there. He didn't have to teach anybody about how much pain there is in life. He taught the cessation of suffering. That's a major difference. And it's real important to understand that all of the Buddha's teaching is about how to have an uplifted mind, a content mind, and a mind that's free from suffering. Now, when we start practicing meditation, and I'm going to talk to you about meditation because I'm a meditation teacher. When we talk about meditation, a lot of people have the idea that meditation is just about sitting like the Buddha image behind me without moving. Meditation is all of life. It's about being aware of what your mind is doing in the present moment. As you become more aware of your mind's attention moving from one thing to another, you start to recognize more easily how you cause your own pain. You have an idea that I want something to be in a particular way. When it doesn't happen that way, what does your mind do with that? Now, one of the things that happens with people that do meditation is they don't like to have any hindrances arise. But life has all kinds of hindrances in it. You have a greedy mind, I want it. You have the dislike mind, I don't want it. You have a mind that gets dull and bored. You have a mind that gets very restless and agitated. And you have a mind that has doubt in it. Now, this can happen to anyone at any time. You don't have to be sitting in meditation to have it happen. But what you do with that hindrance dictates whether you suffer or not. Have you ever had one of those days where you felt like you had 25 things to do and you only had 10 minutes to do it? And you run around from here to there. Oh, I'm in such a hurry, I have to get this done. That's a mind that has restlessness in it, isn't it? That's a mind that has aversion to what's happening in the present moment in it. And that's a mind that suffers. So what do you do with that? The best thing to do, and the easiest way to let go of all hindrances, is to smile and laugh at how crazy your mind is. Now, this sounds really odd. When you laugh at your mind for being so flighty and so caught up, when you laugh, all of a sudden your mind goes from I'm in a hurry, I have to do this now, I really feel a lot of anxiety, or the new word for this century is stress. I have so much stress. When you laugh at how your mind is involved with that and taking everything very personally and identifying with all of those thoughts and feelings, when you laugh it changes your perspective. It changes your view of the world. It goes from, I am that and I don't like it, to, oh, it's only this. What's that? Nothing. It's easy to let go of. The Buddha's path is about having an uplifted mind. Not having a serious mind. Not having a mind that gets upset very easily. It's about being able to recognize all of these things and have balance in your mind. The more balance you practice, the less personally you take whatever arises. Now, when I was giving you the instructions in the meditation, I was saying you need to smile. And I have to admit, after we sat for a minute or two, I started looking around to see if anybody was smiling. And nobody was. You have a tendency to get over-serious. When you're over-serious, you try too hard. When you try too hard, you make restlessness arise. And there's more suffering. It takes a balanced effort, but it takes a light effort. The more you can smile, the more you can laugh with whatever is happening in the present moment, the lighter your mind becomes, the more aware your mind becomes. Now, I have a Yahoo group that I give instructions all the time. And we have a lot of people coming there very often, and they tell me about how difficult the practice is. My advice always is, I don't want you to sit in meditation. I want you to take 1 week, 7 days, that's all. And I want you to smile. All the time. And when you can't smile, I want you to laugh. Now, what does this do? It makes your mind light, and it changes your perspective. Every time you see your mind getting serious, that's the time to laugh and smile. Every time you have repeat thoughts over and over again, that's the time to recognize there's an attachment there. And to smile and laugh into that. Now, you know, all of the Buddha images, they have this little smile on their lips. Why? The artist is trying to show that there is joy in his life. He's experiencing joy. Joy is one of the enlightenment factors. As a matter of fact, it's the middle enlightenment factor. There's 7 enlightenment factors. Joy is right in the middle. That is the balancing point. When you have an uplifted mind, your mindfulness is strong. It's easy to examine what your mind is doing. It's easy to adjust your energy. When you do that and you have that joy, then your mind becomes tranquil. Your mind becomes very collected. And your mind becomes balanced. That's the 7 factors of enlightenment. It's real important to practice smiling. Now, I told somebody this a while back, and they were telling me how difficult it was. It's hard to smile. It's not hard to smile. It's hard not to smile. The more you smile into what you're doing, the more alert your mind becomes. The more awake your mind becomes, the easier it is to watch how mind's attention moves from one thing to another. It's easier to observe how your mind becomes attached and causes you all kinds of suffering. Too many times, people like to blame external circumstances for their problems. You caused me to be sad. It's all your fault. Have you ever heard any expressions like that? Well, actually, nobody out there can cause your suffering. You cause your suffering to yourself by taking whatever arises personally and not liking it and wanting it to be different than it is. Now, part of the instructions in the meditation that I didn't go into this morning was when you sit in meditation, there can be some sensations that arise. You get an itch, you have heat, you have vibration, you feel like a cough coming on, and there can be pain when you sit very still. Now, what you do with what arises in the present moment dictates what happens in the future. This is karma. What you do with what arises in the present moment dictates what happens in the future. If you fight with the present moment, if you resist the present moment, if you try to change the present moment the way you want it to be, you're fighting with the Dhamma. You're fighting with the truth of the present moment. So what do you do when a sensation arises? Almost everybody starts moving around, scratching here, scratching there, anything just to make that sensation go away. But the instructions in the meditation are, don't move. Now what do? You watch how your mind works. You notice first that you have a lot of thoughts about that sensation. I wish it would stop. I wish it would go away. Why does it have to bother me now? You have all of these kind of thoughts. Every time you indulge in this kind of thinking, it makes that sensation bigger and more intense. Until finally, you can't stand it and you have to do something to change it. So every thought about a sensation makes the sensation bigger and more intense. So what do we do now? You let that thought go. You don't continue thinking it. You just let it be there by itself, but you don't keep your attention on it. Now, every time your mind's attention moves, there's tension and tightness in your head, in your mind. And that tension and tightness is the cause of suffering. What is the cause of suffering? Craving. Craving always manifests as tension and tightness in your mind and in your body. So, you let the thought go, now you relax that tension and tightness. Now you see that you have a great big mental fist wrapped around that feeling. And that mental fist is aversion. I don't like it. I don't want it to be there. But the truth is, it's there. That is the Dhamma. What you do with the truth in the present moment dictates what happens in the future. If you allow the space for that sensation to be there without any resistance, you you'll see that tight mental fist just kind of open up and become calm. Now you watch and you see there's tension and tightness in your head, in your mind. Relax. When you relax, it's like a flower opening up. You see your mind kind of expand, and then it becomes very calm. You'll notice right after you let go of that tension and tightness, there are no thoughts. There's just this mind that is pure, alert, and very aware. And you bring that mind back to your object meditation. Now, the thing with these kind of hindrances when they arise is they don't go away right away. So you get to do it again and again and again until it does go away. But when a hindrance arises, a hindrance is showing you where your real attachment is. And the attachment is always I am. I am that. It's showing you where your craving is. When you let go of that tension and tightness, you have a brief moment of the cessation of suffering. You don't have clinging arise because you've let go of the cause of the clinging arising. You've let go of the craving. You bring that pure mind back to your object of meditation. Now, let's get back to our smiling. What does this actually do? When you start to smile into things all the time, when you have a mind that's uplifted, it's alert, you can see more and more clearly. When tightness starts to pull your mind down, when it starts to cause suffering, and it's much easier to let it go. As you smile, as you laugh into whatever your mind gets caught by, you're developing your mindfulness in a real way. Now, how many here can tell me what the word mindfulness means? I ran across a monk the other day, and he was telling me that you have to be mindful, and I said, what does that mean? Well, it means you have to be mindful. Well, what's the different definition of mindfulness? The definition of mindfulness is being mindful. Well, you can't give the word you're trying to define in the definition. It just doesn't work. So I told him, what do you think of this? Mindfulness is remembering to observe how mind's attention moves from one thing to another. Mindfulness is your observation of what's happening in the present moment. Now, with that kind of a definition, you start to understand more and more clearly that when you practice smiling, you're developing your awareness of what's happening in the present moment. And the mindfulness is the observation power. Now, when the Buddha talked about the Eightfold Path, in one sutta in particular, he talked about 3 of the factors of the Eightfold Path that were very, very important. The first was mindfulness. The second was effort. Now, what is right effort? In the Eightfold Path, right effort is, I use generally different words when I talk about the Eightfold Path, and instead of right, I talk about harmonious. Being in harmony with your effort means recognizing when your mind is on something unwholesome. Letting go of that unwholesome and relaxing and bring up a smile. That means bring up a wholesome object and keep your wholesome object going. Every time you smile, you're letting go of an unwholesome object and you're developing a wholesome object. You're letting go of a mind that's heavy and you're developing a mind that's light. And this helps your mindfulness immeasurably. The more you smile, the more you can laugh with your daily activities, the more alert your mind becomes. Now, there's something that you did this morning that's a very good thing to do. But you have to realize that it's not a rite and ritual just to recite the formula. And that is, you took 5 precepts today. Why do you need to keep your precepts? Well, the closer you keep your precepts, the more calm your mind becomes. The less you have anxiety and stress arise. And the less the hindrances will bother you. Now, when I was in Malaysia, I was teaching meditation, and this woman came up. She'd been at the center for a long time. She helped everybody a lot. She was very, very strong in keeping her precepts. She would never tell a little white lie. She would never say anything that was wrong. She would never harm anyone. And she asked me if she could meditate. She wanted to learn. She'd never learned it before. So I told her to come next weekend. I'm going to give a retreat. I gave her the instructions. She sat down. She started meditating. A few hours later, I came by and I said, well, how's your meditation going? And she said, you know, I can only sit for 45 minutes. Only sit for 45 minutes. When she says only, that light bulb comes up in my head. Well, why don't you sit for longer? You know, I'm not used to sitting on the floor, and it causes a lot of pain to come up. And I can only stand it for 45 minutes. So I said, there's no magic in sitting in the floor. If you want to sit in a chair, sit in a chair. Just don't lean in the chair. Sit so your back is straight. Her next sitting was 4 hours. Her next sitting, she went from never experiencing a deep state of meditation to experiencing a very deep state of meditation. Now, why was she able to do this? Because she kept her precepts very, very well. That led to a mind that doesn't have any anxiety in it. It leads to a mind that doesn't have any remorse in it. No guilty feeling. If you say something that you know is wrong, even if it's to not hurt someone else's feelings, even if you tell a little white lie, your quiet voice in your mind comes out and it says, I shouldn't have said that. And that affects the way you see the world. The more you can follow the 5 precepts, in every aspect of your life, the easier life becomes. The easier it is to learn meditation, and when you learn meditation, you have more and more opportunities to have this uplifted mind. Life becomes very much fun. It becomes really interesting. And there's real freedom in that. That's the cessation of suffering. The more you can practice smiling and laughing with your own mind, the more you can have joy arise in your life, the easier it is to recognize when your mind becomes very upset. It's easy to recognize when your mind becomes heavy. And it's also easy to let that go, because you recognize that you are causing your own pain. I come up and I yell at you, you say, I'm causing you suffering. No, I'm just yelling. You're causing the suffering to yourself by not liking it, and then resisting it, and then getting caught into all kinds of thoughts about it. You know, when the Buddha gave the first discourse, he talked about the Eightfold Path very, very deeply. And he said that this is the middle way. Now, the Eightfold Path, it has a lot of right this and right that. But I don't really like that very much, because if something is right, then something is wrong. And then everything is either black or white. And actually, very little in our life is black or white. So instead of right view or right understanding, I call it harmonious perspective. What is a harmonious perspective? Harmonious perspective is seeing that everything that arises is part of an impersonal process. Now, an example. Somebody comes up to you and they have a lot of anger, and they throw their anger at you. What is your natural inclination? To take their anger, make it your anger, and then throw it back at them. Now you're at war. Now you're fighting. Now you're causing yourself a lot of suffering. And when they walk away, now when you're fighting, this is another thing that happens. I'm talking, you're talking, we don't hear what each other says. We only know what we said, and how right we are, and how wrong they are. So when they walk away, what do you think about? What they said, what I said, what I should have said. And I'm right and they're wrong. And then a little while later, just like is on a tape deck, what happens again? Same thing. What they said, what I said, what I should have said. Now, this is a mind that has attachment in it. Attachment to what? It's an attachment to the belief that these thoughts and these feelings are mine personally. Every time you think your thoughts and your feelings that arise are yours, your mind has delusion in it. Your mind is confused, and you are causing yourself pain. Now, here's something real interesting. One of the major illnesses in this country right now is depression. I can tell you exactly how depression arises. I can tell you exactly how to get rid of it without taking any drugs. But you got to do it. Now, when depression arises, what actually happens in your mind? You have a feeling arise, and it's a painful feeling. And then your mind grabs onto that and says, I don't like that. Now, the I like mind and the I don't like mind is craving. Right after there's this tension that comes up, then there's all of the thoughts, all of the opinions, all of the ideas, all of the concepts about why this feeling came up. And then your old habitual tendency, your habitual way of looking at the world gets more and more involved with that. Now, what do you try to do when a painful feeling arises? Now, we have 5 aggregates that make up this body-mind process. You have physical body, you have feeling, Vedana. Feeling is pleasant, painful, or neither painful nor pleasant. We have perception. Perception is the mind that names things. You see this? It's a flower. Perception is a part of the mind that put that name on that, and it has memory involved with it. You have thoughts, and you have consciousness. These are the 5 aggregates. When a painful feeling arises, our habitual tendency is to try to think the feeling away. Now, the more you try to think the feeling, the bigger and more intense that feeling becomes. So you get more and more depressed because you're trying to control a feeling with your thoughts. But thoughts are one thing, and feelings are something else. Never the two shall meet. So what do you do? Now, when I was telling you about what you do when a painful sensation arises while you're meditating, I tell you to first let go of the thoughts. Don't be involved with the content of the thoughts. Let the thoughts be without getting involved in it, and relax the tightness caused by that distraction. Now you see the feeling for what it really is. It's a painful feeling, it's true. But it's okay for a painful feeling to be there. It has to be, because that's the truth. When a painful feeling arises, it is there. So you allow the space for that painful feeling to be there. And relax. Then you come over to your smile and wishing happiness for someone. The more you do that, the less and less distracted your mind becomes, until finally there is no more depression. This isn't a maybe. This is the way it really works. But it takes practice to do that. And that means practice with smiling, practice with laughing, And every time you laugh at how crazy your mind is, you're not crazy anymore. That is changing your perspective from a tight observation of I am that to an observation of it's only that. See, when you have that tight observation, your mind tightens around it and you wind up getting headaches. Somebody asked me not too long ago, when was the last time I had a headache? I said, well, I don't really remember. Maybe 3 or 4 years ago. It might have been longer. I don't know. I don't get headaches. Why? Because I see the tightness starting to happen and I start relaxing right then. Then I don't have any headache. Do I need to take aspirin? No. Why would I want to do that? Practicing smiling and laughing into things changes your perspective of the world around you. Now, if I come to you with this flower, and let's say it's a rose, and I give it to you and you're in a happy mood, what do you see? Oh, the flower is very beautiful and it smells great and the color is wonderful. But if I take that flower away and I come back and give it to you when you're in an unhappy mood, what do you see? You see the thorns, how it hurts you, how you don't like it. Now what's different? The flower is still the same thing. It's a flower. It's your perspective that's different. Now the Buddha spent 45 years trying to show people how to have an uplifted mind, how to have a content mind, how to have a mind that was free from suffering. The more you smile, the more you laugh into things, the easier it is to change your perspective. When you change your perspective, what you're doing is learning how to change an image that you're holding in your mind of being unhappy to an image of being happy. Now the second part of the Eightfold Path is called, it's always translated into English as right thought, but it's a terrible translation. I call it harmonious imaging. What kind of an image do you hold in your mind? Are you in harmony with that? Now, the next part of the Eightfold Path is a real interesting thing, because a lot of monks will tell you that when you're practicing meditation, you don't need to practice these next 3 factors of the Eightfold Path. They call it right speech, right action, and right livelihood. Again, I'm not real wild about those translations, so I call it harmonious communication. Now, when the Buddha practiced, or when he first started talking about the Eightfold Path to the 5 ascetics, he was talking to people that had for years been working very hard on developing their mind. So when he was talking about right speech, he wasn't saying they were going around and cursing people or using wrong speech. He was talking about a kind of communication that you have with yourself. How many people are hard on themselves? How many people are critical of the way they do things? How many people cause themselves suffering because of their own thoughts and opinions and ideas? Harmonious communication means that you have to love yourself. You're with yourself more than you're with anybody else. When you smile and you laugh, you're learning how to change your communication with yourself so you have an uplifted mind. And that leads to freedom. That leads to true happiness. The next part of the Eightfold Path, they call it right effort. Again, I changed that. I call that, not right effort, excuse me, right action. I changed that to mean harmonious movement. And that means watching the movement of mind's attention. Not jerking your mind around, not causing undue tensions to arise in your mind and in your body, but being in harmony with that. Now the next part of the Eightfold Path has always been kind of comical to me because it's always been explained as right livelihood. And right livelihood means don't kill any beings, don't use any poisons, and don't sell any, or don't take any slaves and sell them. Now, how ridiculous is that to say during the first discourse to ascetics that have been practicing not killing for a long time? So what is it? What is right livelihood? I call it a harmonious lifestyle. And that means being in harmony with yourself and everyone around you all of the time. Living in a way that causes you and other people around you to be happy, to have uplifted minds. Now the next part is, they call it right effort, I call it harmonious practice. And I already told you about that. That's their fourfold formula. Recognizing something unwholesome, letting go of that. Relaxing, smiling, and continuing smiling. Have an uplifted mind. Don't allow mind to get caught up personally condemning and criticizing. That's unwholesome. Develop that mind that's uplifted. It takes a lot of energy to do that. It's not easy, but it's definitely worthwhile. And the easiest way to do that, smile and laugh. It's hard to do that, isn't it? It takes a lot of effort to smile and laugh. It takes the effort to remember to do that. When you're caught up in an emotional state, you're really identifying heavily with the dissatisfaction, the dislike of the present moment. You're causing yourself huge amounts of suffering. But as you remember to let go of the unwholesome and relax and smile, develop that mind that's uplifted. It changes your view of the world. It makes that flower that I was talking about a little while ago always be beautiful. You stop causing yourself pain and suffering. You continually bring your mind up. The more you practice smiling and laughing, the easier it is to have joy arise. And you need to have joy, because that's one of the enlightenment factors. Now, the next part of the Eightfold Path is mindfulness, harmonious observation. Now, this mindfulness is just observing. That's its only function, is to remember to observe what is happening in the present moment with mind and body. It's the observation mind. It doesn't change anything. It just observes how mind is acting in the present moment. The right effort is the thing that changes things. Now, the last of the Eightfold Path has always been called right concentration. And I really have trouble with this word in this country, because concentration implies that your mind just stays on one thing, to the exclusion of everything else. But that's not what the Buddha taught. During the time of the Buddha, the Pali word samadhi was made up by the Buddha. There were a lot of words for one-pointed concentration. There were a lot of words for having a mind that doesn't move. That he chose not to use that. He made up a word to describe how mind can be calm and very alert of whatever else is happening around it. So I've just given you the Eightfold Path with a little different twist to it than maybe what you're used to seeing. But this is very practical. When we use the Eightfold Path in this practical way, there's a system of doing the meditation. It's called a mnemonic system. It's a system of helping you remember. And I've made some brochures over here. You can come and get one if you want about this mnemonic system. But it goes like this. You recognize that your mind is distracted. You release the distraction and you relax. You re-smile. You return to your object of meditation and you repeat staying with your object of meditation. We call it the 6 R's. Recognize, release, relax, re-smile. You know, I've been to a lot of meditation retreats. I mean a lot. And for 20 years, I was caught up in this just like anybody else was. That I was being very serious with meditation, and I was trying very hard. Now this 4th step in the 6 R's is re-smile. Why do you need to re-smile? Because when you put in the wrong kind of effort, you never progress with your meditation. You always have problems arising with your meditation. The meditation is supposed to be fun. Life is supposed to be fun. Meditation is life. Life is meditation, as long as you practice it. When you smile, at that moment you are practicing all of the Eightfold Path at the same time. Your mind is alert. You're able to see how mind's attention moves from one thing to another. And you can see that without getting attached. What does the attachment mean? Taking thoughts and feelings personally. Letting go of that. You start experiencing more and more of what life is supposed to be like. And that is having fun. You're around your kids, they're 2 or 3 years old, they have fun. They're curious. They want to see what everything is. This develops that kind of mind. The more interested you become in how mind's attention moves from one thing to another, the more you start to see how you cause your own pain. And you start letting go of it. And then you become truly alive. So, when you're living your daily life, I'm going to give you a challenge right now. For the next week, as much as you can remember to do it, I want you to smile. Smile into everything. I don't care whether you feel like it or not. We had this one man that he was coming to the website, and he was talking with me very much. He's practicing a different kind of meditation, and finally he wasn't getting it, and I became frustrated, and I said, okay, stop meditating altogether. I just want you to smile for 1 week. So he took it seriously, and he did it. And he wrote back and he said, I want to give you some of the observations that happened to me during this week. When I smiled, even if I didn't feel like smiling, it made my perspective different. He said, I used to walk around, going from one place to another in a mental haze, thinking about this, thinking about that. And when I started smiling, my posture changed. I started standing up more straight. When I started smiling, people started smiling back to me. That's amazing. They never did that before. He said, they actually started to come closer to me and talk with me. And they never did that before. Smiling for 1 week changed his perspective. It improved his mindfulness. It made him more alert to what his mind was doing. And he let go of immeasurable amounts of suffering. Try it. That's all I'm asking. And when you can, come and visit me in Missouri. Okay.